All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming to Exit Realty's first time homebuyer seminar tonight. Thank you guys all for being here. We're very excited to have you. And for those of you out in Facebook land and YouTube land, we're excited to have you as well. We are going to keep this to a fun and hopefully very informative 45-minute session. We've got some great speakers. I'm Nick Libert. I'm broker owner of Exit Strategy Realty. On behalf of all of our 150 sales and leasing agents, we're excited to have you guys. We also have Frank Cicala from Neighborhood Loans. He's a private mortgage banker with Neighborhood Loans. Wonderful mortgage banker. We've done a lot of business together. And Terry from Talarico Law. We've had a lot of transactions together as well. He's going to tell you everything from the legal side of it, what to watch out for. So as we begin tonight, obviously we have a PowerPoint for those of you in the room. For those of you following along online, we can send it to you, or you can kind of follow along if you can see our screen up here. Why are we here? Well, that's a good question. There are a lot of huge opportunities in home ownership today, but what we're going to focus on tonight is not only why are we here, but why are you here? And you as the audience, you're here because you want to know about the value of home ownership. You want to know about the pre-approval and the financing process, I'm assuming. You want to know about how to search for a home, how that selection process is going to go, and how your real estate broker is going to help you find the best possible investment and home for you. We're also going to go through the inspection procedure to make sure once you do find what you think is the perfect home, that you're actually going to be buying something that's worth your time, that you're not going to get into one of those money pits that we hear about on HGTV and on the internet, maybe sometimes from a relative or a friend. We're also going to go through contractor close. Illinois is an attorney state, and that means luckily we have some extra protections afforded here by the attorneys involved in the process, and so Terry's going to tell you a little bit more about that. So to begin, the value of owning your own home. Again, why are we all here? Why are we excited about the process? Why are we thinking this is going to be one of the highest and best uses of your money, and probably one of the biggest investments you're ever going to make? First one is an investment in real estate is one you control. It's stable. Unlike the stock market, unlike your retirement account, unlike a lot of those other things out there in the world that we all feel as members of the U.S. population we invest in, this is something that you personally have control over. Every month, you are basically automatically saving. As the property appreciates over time, it also is you're paying down on your mortgage. So you're basically building in an extra savings account that you're not even thinking about from month to month as you're actually living in and enjoying your home. Homeowners get a tax break. This is huge. This isn't something that everybody talks about, but every month as you are paying for your home, also at the end of the year, you're writing off your mortgage interest against your earnings. That means that every year you're going to get probably a much larger tax refund than you would otherwise. Obviously talk to your CPA about that, but we're going to go into that a little bit tonight as well. There's some huge tax benefits to being a homeowner that someone that's renting and throwing away money on a landlord just can't ever get. Leverage. Your mortgage is OPM. That's other people's money. That means that your bank note, that mortgage note, that's financing your investment. If you buy stock, you're buying 100% of that with your own money. No one's helping you out buying that. Versus tonight, Terry's going to tell you, and as is Frank going to tell you a little bit more about in the financing process, 96.5% of your investment can be financed by OPM, other people's money, if you're doing an FHA loan or a similar loan product. If you want to sell your property down the road and your property is appreciated, you can get up to $250,000 in profit tax-free if you lived there for 2 out of the last 5 years. That is a huge benefit for you. If you're going to turn around and maybe move to a different city or buy a bigger home or buy it in a different neighborhood, whatever you want to do down the road, this is one of the few things in the world that you can turn around and sell for a profit and not owe Uncle Sam money if you're declaring it as your primary residence. You can buy and rent the place out eventually as well. That's a great way to make an extra income, is that if you're turning around in about 2-3 years, you decide, hey, I want to do something else, and I want to rent this place out, that can be an extra income for you. Right now, interest rates are low enough, and prices have not gone up that much that we're actually seeing some people cash flow in their properties just by paying down their note. You can also automatically fund your retirement account versus funding your landlord's future. This is something that we talk about a lot here at Exit, is that basically if you're throwing away money on rent, you're helping your landlord retire. If you purchase a property, you're helping yourself retire down the road. It may not be today or tomorrow that you see this happen, but if you stay in your home and you pay off your mortgage, you're living debt-free. Whereas if you sit there and pay rent for the next 10, 15, 20 years, your landlord will end up living rent-free and debt-free. The pre-approval and finance purchase, I'm actually going to turn around and turn this over to Frank. He's going to tell you a little bit more about the financing end of it, and then we'll get back into the selection process, which is where your realtors come in and your attorney process.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Hello, Facebook friends. Everyone else here today. Most of you know my name. I'm Frank Sakala with Neighborhood Loans. Basically, the pre-approval process can be very simple. It can be also very tedious sometimes, but basically the main component is making sure that you, the realtor, knows your buyers are capable of buying a property, okay? And that just kind of a general gather of information from the buyer. The 3 C's I focus on, or I'm sorry, the 3 components I focus on, income, credit, and assets. Okay, those 3 things make up your client's buying power. So essentially, pre-qualification, initial consultation with a lender prior to or in the earliest stages of the search process. The sooner, the better is my advice to you. Okay, you're working with someone who is looking to buy a property. It's a financial investment. It's also an emotional investment. Knowing your client is capable of buying a property makes them feel much more at ease in the early stages. You set up your search and go from there. Okay. General information that I usually acquire for the pre-qualification: employment, debt, etc. is gathered and credit is pulled. So employment, again, we go back to the 3 components. Employment being income. Debt goes into your liability stage of what you owe on a monthly basis compared to your monthly income. Etc. would be obviously your assets and other things of that nature. Lender pre-qualifies the borrower for a certain loan amount and interest rate. So from there I can gather what your client is qualified for on the actual financing end. The rate he qualifies for and the loan amount determines that. Gives borrower a general idea what they're capable of borrowing and affording monthly. Okay, great. So we just mentioned that. So we'll go left, right? Yes. Okay, no, right. Okay. Pre-approval process continued. Pre-approval, this is the complete application. So in order to get that gold piece of paper, that pre-approval letter, I want to see the credit report, I want to see your income, your asset verification, and I also want to see your income. So I want to make sure everything is correlated and lines up specifically to your client's needs. Okay, so again, credit report, income, and asset are those 3 components. Pre-approval letter is issued. Now you're able to go out there and say, I have a buyer, we're able to buy, here's my letter, my lender has pre-approved my client. Okay. Credit score is very, very important. That's going to distinguish your actual interest rate majority of the time. Okay. Everyone's focused on credit score. It's credit report. And the reason being so is because your score could still be where it needs to be to buy a home, but there could be things on your credit report that keep you from being approved through FHA, conventional, or other kind of agencies out there to buy a property. Okay. Your payment, your credit score is a key part of the home approval. The criteria, how they score credit: 35% is payment history, 30% is the amount owed compared to the actual credit line, 15% is length of history. You'll see kids come out of college, 18, 19, 20 years old, whatever it may be, even older in that case, and they have a great score, but they have light credit. They've been paying a Chase credit card for 6 months. Might hurt them getting approved. Okay. Types in use, type of cards, revolving credit cards, etc., and then any kind of new credit they've recently acquired. Okay. Financing ability. Okay. So you have 2 ratios when you're trying to be qualified for a property, also known as DTI, debt to income. And there's certain thresholds on the maximum allowable DTI when buying a home. The front ratio, monthly housing payments divided by household gross income. Goal, less than 29%. Okay, I'll give you a very easy example that makes sense for math-wise. You have $10,000 a month gross income. Your monthly payment cannot go over a certain threshold. In this case, our goal is under 29%. 29% of 10,000 would be 2,900. Okay, and that's your PITI. It's called your principal, interest, taxes, and all insurances. Okay, that's your front ratio. Your back ratio, okay, or your end ratio is housing costs. So it's your front plus all other bills. We have a car payment. We have a student loan. We have credit card debt. Okay, now you take that amount and add it to the front. let's say our other bills are $2,100. We have $2,900 in housing, $2,100 in other miscellaneous bills, would be about 50%. Conventional wants to be under 45% DTI. In some cases, they make an exception. Okay. FHA, you're allowed to go to 56.99%. So we'll call it 57%. So our goal is right in the middle there. Okay. Next slide. Credit tips for buyers. I did make a more enhanced one in our 10 no-nos when buying a property. Do not quit, change jobs during the search. That's probably the biggest one. A lot of times people think it's okay to change jobs. If you're getting promoted and your job is consistent with an offer letter, I get it. Okay? If you're going backwards with your income, it's going to hurt your debt to income ratio. So try and maintain that position through the transaction. Okay? And obviously being honest with your loan officer. Pay your rent on time. People think, well, I'm just renting, so it's not going to hurt my credit. False. Okay? There's things called VOR, verification of rent. Okay? Your history, your credit could get affected by it. Most of the time not, but just keep an eye that if we order a VOR from your actual management company and we see a poor history, it could make an underwriter's decision to deny your loan or your client's loan. Okay? Avoid making large purchases. We just had this conversation about 10 minutes ago. You're excited, you're buying a new home. You know what? While we're buying a new home, let's buy a new Mercedes. Wait, what? No. Do not do that, okay? You're adding more debt and it could hurt your original pre-qualification numbers. Improve credit score if necessary. I always, from top to bottom, will review a credit report to see what things I can do or acknowledge to that individual to help their credit. Again, just the rating, the credit score can determine your interest rate. So if I see you're a few points away from lowering your interest rate by paying off a simple credit card down a little bit, or maybe there's a lingering collection, things of that nature, we'll try and improve the credit. I won't individually, but I do have many contacts out there, professional credit cleaners who can help you out in that regards. Hold on to bank account, investment account, and 401k IRA statements. Obviously keep those around. Everything's pretty digital or electronic now, so we can go online and get those statements, etc. But for the most part, keep those handy. We require the past 60 days of statements. So last 2 months, essentially. Okay? Mortgage product options. So once your client is able to acquire financing, we're going to look at different options for them. And by looking at different options, it's giving them the choice to choose what loan product is best for them. Okay? FHA will start with 3.5% down payment. Restricts condos, so it's fewer buildings to view. There are some condo buildings, especially in our great city of Chicago here, that are not FHA approved. Okay? So you have to go conventional routes or other means necessary. If it's not FHA approved, it's probably not VA, no other gimmick product, etc. So with that being said, FHA is usually one of the more aggressive programs because you're able to come in with little money down, and again, back to what I said earlier, the higher debt to income ratio allowance of 56.99%. Conventional, there are some programs with 3% down. Traditionally, any product with 20% down or more eliminates MI. Okay, so that's why that has been the staple of conventional financing. 20% down, no private mortgage insurance. Renovation loans, these are for properties that could need some work, so there's a lot more numbers that go into this, a lot more assessing value prior to it. But basically you're allowed to get funds from the bank to repair or renovate your home the day you purchase it. And then those funds that you use are tacked onto your loan amount. Okay? So you notice right there you're already paying interest on the loan, but it is a highly, highly used program for distressed properties. Documents for the loan. You'll receive a, not a GFE anymore, it's called an LE now, a lending estimate. Okay? And it goes over all your estimated payments and upfront costs. Appraisal, credit report, underwriting, processing fees are the primary ones. Okay. In this case, the main one is the appraisal as an upfront cost because we work with AMCs, appraisal management companies. The client will pay for the appraisal the day of the application at the spot. Debit card, credit card, personal check. You will need in most cases, this is pretty concrete, 2 years complete tax returns. So in this case, most of our clients have already filed 15s. So it'll be 2015, 2014 tax returns and W-2s. Most recent pay stubs, most recent would be last 30 days. Copy of driver's license and or social security card. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, previous 2 months bank statements or asset verification. Okay, and then obviously always on Nick's side, we'll get the contract agreement signed by all parties. Okay, Nick, I think we'll hand it over to you. Thank you very much.
We'll be talking to Frank again in a little bit. Well, this is Frank. Frank is the money guy, so he's the one you want to make sure that you're doing everything right with first. But then this is, I'm the realtor, so I think this is the fun part. This is the home selection process. So once you have your pre-approval from your mortgage lender, and you basically got kind of like money in the bank, so to speak, you've got the funds basically through the bank, and you're ready to buy. This is the fun part. So what are you going to do? You're going to go through the home search process, and you're going to pick a great buyer's agent, hopefully one of us here at Exit Strategy Realty, to work with you. And why is that important? Because and not only in the state of Illinois, but all across the country, sellers are represented by a seller's agent. A buyer also needs their agent. They need representation as well. So a buyer's agent is free to use. We're actually paid through the course of the commission process by the seller along with the seller's agent. So there's no charge to work with a buyer's agent, but yet the buyer's agent's there to help you out throughout the process and make sure that everything that you're doing is going to be in your best interest. What you want to do, we're going to start out with a needs analysis. We're going to figure out what exactly you need. What do you want? What do you desire out of this home search? What do you want to end up with as a property? We're going to talk about price range. Obviously, you went through the process with your mortgage lender. You have an idea. Just because you're pre-approved for a certain amount doesn't mean you need to spend that entire amount up front or period. So if you're sitting there and you're looking at a $250,000 loan limit, that doesn't mean you have to spend all $250,000. We can find you something for $150,000 or $180,000. That's great. So don't think you have to spend all the way up to that limit. You can be frugal. But let's figure out what your price range is and what you're comfortable with affording monthly. Parking and pets. Here in the city of Chicago, parking's tough. Even out in some of the suburbs now, parking's difficult. We want to make sure if you have a car that we have a place to put it. If you don't have a car, that you've got great transportation. Pets. There are some condo buildings that don't allow pets at all or have some pretty heavy restrictions on pets. What type of financing are you going to use? Frank mentioned FHA. That restricts you to some buildings. Not every building is FHA compliant or FHA friendly. So we want to figure that out up front. Neighborhoods. There are some awesome neighborhoods in Chicago. Every neighborhood has something great about it here in the city of Chicago, and every suburb has some wonderful benefits to it. You need to figure out what suburb or what part of the city you want to be in. Where are you looking to go? And if you don't know where you want to go, you and your agent need to start exploring neighborhoods. So that's something that we're going to all do during this needs analysis. And another thing that a lot of people don't even get into consideration with up front, but what kind of property do you want? Do you want a single family? Do you want a townhome, a co-op, a condo? What is that going to look like? Is it going to be on 2 levels, 1 level? Kind of think about that up front with your agent. Kind of do almost like a dream board of what you want to live in. Once you get that set up, you and your agent are going to set up your MLS search. That's going to come from your real estate agent. They're going to send it to you daily, and that's going to come in through your email. So you don't have to be sitting there on 20 different websites trying to research while you're at work and getting in trouble at your job. We want you to keep your job so you can keep your mortgage pre-approval as well. So we're going to send you something every day. Everything that's new on the market, everything that's been price reduced into your price range, everything that matches your criteria that even may have come back on the market. Maybe a deal fell apart with somebody else. That's going to happen through your MLS search. You then go ahead and you pick out what you like. You say no to the ones you don't like. We're not going to show it to you then. And we're going to go ahead and move forward, and we're going to be able to show you whatever you want to see. Viewing properties, it's going to, again, be on your schedule. Most real estate agents, especially here at Exit, we work 7 days a week. We work around your schedule. We want to be available when you're available. We provide you with property information. We're going to try to do as much research as we can up front and along the way with you. Sometimes there's things that we can find out that just aren't available in the public domain, or that we quite frankly know is incorrect in the public domain. There's some information floating out there on some websites that isn't accurate whatsoever. So we're going to help you and do that due diligence with you as you start the process and go through it. Once you have favorites picked out, you've seen, and I get a lot of questions about how many properties should I see with my agent? Well, I personally tell my clients I think you should see at least a dozen before we go ahead and buy something. Some agents may say 4, some agents may say 40. You talk about that with your agent, each situation is going to be different. But what I want you to do is make sure that you get educated to the point that you feel comfortable knowing that even if something new comes up, that this one is probably going to be the one for you. It may not be perfect, but it's going to be about what you want. Once you do that, we're going to provide a market analysis on that property. What's sold around it that's like it in the last 3 to 6 months? What's currently active that's competing with it? What's the history of the property itself? All of that we're going to kind of detail out for you so you've got a little bit better idea of where to offer. Once we do that, we're going to actually get into the offer and negotiating process. This is not the most fun part of the process. We think the selection process is, because that's when you're out looking at properties. Once you select one though, it's really time to get pen and paper together, or at this digital age, at least getting on your smartphone and working with us electronically and getting an offer put together. There's some variables and things you've got to think about. Once you have found this perfect property, or 2 or 3 perfect properties, if you're kind of lining them up 1, 2, and 3, you've got to start off with what's the sales price? What is the amount that you are willing to pay for this property? If there's not multiple offers, you're going to probably go low. If there are multiple offers, you're going to do what's called a highest and best offer, and you and your agent are obviously going to go over what all this means. You're also going to have to put down some earnest money. That's basically like deposit money, kind of like a deposit on a car or on an apartment, which is what a lot of us, when we're first-time buyers, we've experienced that in other aspects of our life. You're also going to have a closing date. Your closing date now, if you're working with a mortgage lender, Frank, I don't know what you would say. I'm guessing 45 days to 60 days?
Fair. Yeah.
Okay, so 45 to 60 days from now is when we're closing. That's a little bit longer than it used to be. Some of you that have actually purchased a home before may be used to 30 days. That is extended on out due to some new government regulations and financing regulations that have dragged out the process a little bit. But we know that and we'll compensate for that. We want to base everything on comparables and also the condition of the property. Just because one sold down the street for $100,000 doesn't mean this one's worth $100,000. Maybe worth less or more depending on condition. You and your lender may have figured out that you may also need some credits, that you may have some things that you want paid for as far as closing costs. That's a great conversation to have with your lender. If you're tight on funds, but you have great credit, you may be able to ask for some credits for closing costs from the seller. But that's all got to be figured out up front before you make your offer. You don't want to decide that later after you've already started writing up a deal. Your agent negotiates on your behalf. Obviously, that's a contract that you and your agent put together. Your initial offer is in writing. There's no such thing as email or verbal offers initially. That is not something that we advise anyone to do. They're not going to be taken seriously by a seller, and that can have some legal consequences as well. So as a buyer, you're going to put your initial offer in writing. We do have electronic signing now. Our company uses a product called Dotloop. Some people use DocuSign. So you don't necessarily have to be right in front of us, even though we recommend that for a first-time buyer, when you do your initial offer. Once you do your initial offer, there may be some emails and conversations bouncing back and forth between the agents on your behalf as the buyer and on the seller's behalf with the seller's agent. But once you finally come together and you actually have an agreement, then you're going to go ahead and redo that contract according to the final terms. So don't think you have to do 10 to 12 versions of this contract as you're bouncing back and forth and negotiating this out. You have an initial contract and you have a final contract. And in between then, there's probably going to be a series of emails and phone calls and perhaps another offer or two in writing before you get to the final contract. Your accepted offer is going to be executed by both you and the seller. Everyone's going to have a copy on file. We're going to send that over to your lender. We're going to send that over to your attorney. And again, we're going to hear from Terry in just a bit. And once agreement is reached, the attorney review and the inspection clauses go into effect. And that in the state of Illinois is very important for your protection as well as for the seller's protection. Your earnest money is safe. We get a lot of questions about earnest money. As long as an attorney or inspection issues are what is the issue, and you have not defaulted on your contract, you will, in almost every case, be able to get your earnest money back. So we want to be able to make sure that any issues that you see coming up with this property, once you've selected and under contract on it, are dealt with during attorney review and inspection periods. which brings up the next question. What is the inspection period? We used to actually bring in a home inspector, and this is not a slam on any home inspectors, but we used to bring in a home inspector to do this portion of the class, but it kind of would end up dragging out, and it kind of felt like we were all in woodshop class or something. So we're gonna let me do it today, and I'm definitely not a contractor by any means. But what we do know as laymen in the field is that the inspection period is fairly crucial to making sure that this is actually a property you want to buy. A licensed home inspector in the state of Illinois knows a lot more than the common person does about structurally, engineering-wise, plumbing and electrical, appliances, things like that. What exactly is wrong and right in the home? It is definitely better than having you or a family member / relative or good friend that knows things come into property and try to tell you what's right and wrong. This type of thing, you need a home inspector, a licensed home inspector for. It costs between $350 to $500 on average. That may be a little bit more than that if you're dealing with a multi-unit property. So if you're looking to buy a 2 to 4 flat, it may be a little bit of a higher price depending on the home inspector you retain. It takes about 1 to 3 hours. We strongly recommend you are at that home inspection with the inspector. We will be happy to be there with you as well, but you really want to be there with the home inspector, understanding what they see, what's good, and what the problems are. If not, it's really hard for you later on to turn around and have to negotiate things and decide what is serious and what you maybe even want to back out on the contract or renegotiate in the contract based on the results of that home inspection. So home inspection is key. Contract to close, attorney review, that is also huge. And we're actually going to bring Terry up here from the legal perspective to talk to you a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Nick. Good evening, everybody. My name is Terry Fogarty, and I'm an attorney at the Tellerico Law Group. We are a law firm that focuses on real estate within the Chicagoland area. And I've been asked to give you a good overview of basically what my job is as the attorney in your first-time home purchase. So let's start by saying you've finished all the rest, okay? You finished everything that Nick just talked about. You've got a signed contract, all right? That contract is going to be anywhere between 3 to 13 plus pages of, honestly, complete legalese. Okay, that's where my job comes in. Okay, I am there to basically spell out for you what your obligations are under the contract, and more importantly, to protect all of your rights under the contract. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, every contract generally has what's called an attorney review and an inspection clause. And the attorney review clause allows me as your attorney to either disapprove of the contract completely or to modify the contract by requesting certain changes be made, okay? And so basically, during that 5-day period when your agent is helping you get your inspection done and you're reviewing the inspection and you're deciding on what items you'd like to have fixed, I'm reviewing the contract. And I'm basically looking at that contract and I'm comparing it with your specific situation to make specific modifications, okay? So what's an example of that? Well, Frank mentioned FHA loans. FHA loans require a separate FHA inspection, okay, home inspection. And in that, they often require certain items to be fixed before they'll approve you for the loan. So we may want to address that in attorney review. We may want to state that we leave the attorney review open to FHA items so we can discuss them once the FHA inspection is complete. Okay, so those are the specific modifications we make. We also request certain other blanket specific modifications that we find make the contract a little bit more stilted toward the buyer. Excuse me. So after that, the second portion of our attorney review letter is stilted towards your inspection. And in that, we can request that the seller make certain changes, or I'm sorry, make certain repairs that you request. And they can either make the repairs under the inspection, they can offer you a credit at closing, or we can reduce the purchase price. Okay, or we can do a combination of all three. So in general, these negotiations go back and forth between my office and the seller's attorney. And once those are complete, and of course we let you know once they respond and we come to agreement, and once those are complete, we are done with the attorney review period. Okay, and then once the attorney review period is over, that's when basically Frank comes in and you concentrate on dealing with Frank and getting your loan secured and securing that loan so that we can go to closing. And once you have you're clear to close, which means the lender has no more conditions and you are ready to close and the loan is fully approved, we will schedule the closing for you. And during that time, also we are reviewing every one of the seller's documents to make sure that you are going to receive this property free and clear with no issues on title. Okay. And finally, we're going to attend the closing with you. Okay. And when we attend the closing, we're going to go over every document that is at that closing, all of the seller's documents and all the lender's documents, to make sure that you understand exactly what you are signing. Okay. And then finally, I will mention the big elephant in the room here, the city transfer tax. And Chicago does have a transfer tax that you can basically consider to be a sales tax. It is $7.50 per thousand. It does also mention the county and state, but those are generally paid for by the seller. So we don't have to be too concerned with those. Okay. And then I will mention the cost of the attorney is between $400 and $650. In general, that's about right. Our firm falls in the middle of that. We charge $550 to represent a buyer. And probably the most important thing for you to remember is that we are there for you throughout this process. We've got, just like Nick's team and just like Frank's team, we've got decades of experience behind us, and we're there to answer any questions that you might have throughout this process.
All right, well, what's next? So basically, that is our presentation for you. We said we would keep it under 45 minutes, and we did. We have some time for Q&A. If you guys are in the Facebook audience or on YouTube, put it in the comments section or message your Exit Realty agent, and they will get back to you. And we'll also do the same with Frank and Terry. They're here to answer your questions as well. But your next question, if you've got some more things you want to discuss with us, we actually are going to turn off the Facebook, so you guys that are in the audience here live can actually answer your question, have your questions answered without a worldwide audience, and then we'll go from there. So thank you guys very much. Our contact information is on the screen. Again, if you're on with us online, then just go ahead and connect with your Exit Realty agent. And thank you guys very much for coming.
Thank you.